Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Stormkeep. Today, we are going to be reviewing the new Warscroll for Ionus Cryptborn, the new Arch-Relictor summoned by Sigmar to go find the souls of lost dragon in the realm of Shyish. And with me today to talk about this fantastic new model with an awesome new Warscroll, I've got...
Hey guys, this is Murgonk.
Hey y'all, it's David.
Hey guys, this is Ionus Cryptborn here.
Nice. All right, before we jump into the video, let's talk about our sponsor for the Stormkeep podcast, Kaiju Gaming Lounge. Located in Orlando, Florida, Kaiju Gaming Lounge is the official sponsor. They supply all the prizes for our painting contests. They also sell our merch. We have these fancy 9-inch, 7-inch range markers with our logo on there. Those are great for playing Annihilators in particular. So if you want to measure 9 inches or 7 inches off the table, you can do so with these handsome-looking colored rangefinders, or go for the clear option, which is also a good one. We also have dice coming back into stock, so if you're interested in picking up a set of Stormkeep dice, they should be available now. You can use Stormkeep to get 15% off all Warhammer at kaijugaminglounge.com. All right, so let's not beat around the bush. Let's jump into the Warscroll here for Ionus Cryptborn. He is a new Stormcast Eternal unit. He is a named unique character that is currently only available in a campaign box bundle with 2 Stormdrakes, but almost certainly he's going to be released on his own at some point later. So if you are like some people we've talked to who have dozens of Stormdrake Guard and you just don't need 2 more, you could just wait for him to come out on his own. Although, oddly enough, all of those people are so excited about this model, they're going to buy him and do the dragons anyway. So, yeah. Quick notes. He is a hero monster priest, which is a combination we haven't seen before. That's not something that we have in the Stormcast army or any army. Right? I don't think we have any other monster priests in the game.
No, I don't think so. I think this is like the first one.
Yeah, and he's expensive. 400 points. He's a leader, a behemoth. He is single, and he is unique. And he's got a lot of rules. He's got just like it's so refreshing to see a page of rules for Stormcast, because our battle tome is like, you look at the Knight Relictor and he's got 1 ability. Cool. And this guy is just like a freaking novel, and I love it. He's got a shooting attack that's Rend 2. He's got a whole bunch of Rend 1, Rend 2, Rend 3 melee attacks, 14-inch flying move. His breath attack stops people from healing. He prevents Inspiring Presence and Rally. He can chant 2 prayers, which, Murgonk, buddy, how long have we been asking for a hero that can chant 2 prayers? That's so cool.
Yeah, and the only thing this could be icing on the cake if he knew the whole Stormcast prayer scripture. But my God, 2 prayers is great. I don't think there's any double priest in the game right now, other than maybe Khorne with an enhancement. So yeah, this is really cool.
Yeah, and
honestly, if anyone should get it, it's us, right? Let's be honest.
Us, or maybe some kind of high priestess of Morathi or something.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. But he's fantastic. He's got his Lightning Tempest prayer, which has been beefed up since his Lord Relictor days. Now it's instead of just hitting 1 unit for D3 mortal wounds, it keeps going. It just finds every unit nearby, and on a 3+, it chains to them. And he's also -1 to attacks, so he's kind of got like a Karazai Krondys type situation going on. So he's fast, he's relatively punchy, relatively durable, great utility set. Looks like a fantastic Warscroll, right? I really like it.
Yeah, it's great.
Obviously, a new dragon model is always exciting. I've played dragons for a really long time. We've got Krondys and Karazai, who are these great big dragons, but while the models are great, they don't see a ton of play, and also the models are very similar, other than their color, and one of them has, the gold armor, the other one has a scar. But having another unit with a rider and having a leader, and then on top of that, just giving us more priest access, I think is really cool. So that was super exciting. It's a bit confusing sometimes. GW is kind of funny with the lore. I'm reading up about it, and they're talking about, we've had this guy before, and they kind of show, the Lord Relictor, right? The Lord Relictor model. Yet this guy looks much closer to the Knight Relictor, or even the Questor's Soulsworn Relictor.
Yeah, I think that's probably the Thunderstrike armor. That'll probably do it.
But he's also holding a maul, which the Lord Relictor didn't have. It's just kind of strange, the way things just get changed over time and not really acknowledged. But that's okay.
Yeah, for all we know,
really, really.
Priests have always had mauls. What are you talking about? There's never been a priest without a maul.
Yeah, right.
Well, this guy is skull maxing for sure. He's skull face, skull shoulders. Both shoulder pads are skulls. Carrying a skull lantern thing. His dragon he's got skull knee pads. I don't know if anybody noticed that yet, but he has skull knee pads. I bet that book has a skull on it.
Skulls.
His dragon has a skull helmet. It's got skull shoulder pads.
Shoulder pads.
It's just skull maxing for sure.
Insane. Yeah. Like, whose skulls are those? Other relicers?
Just, it's Warhammer.
Like
it's got to have skulls.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I also love there's this big bellowing cape coming forward. That's really cool. I do sometimes look at these, dragon poses. Like the Star Drakes were similar, where they were like on this, big mount, sort of sticking above the dragon, and then, he's got both hands out. Like at least with the Star Drake characters, like they were holding with one hand and had another hand with their weapon. This guy's gonna fly off this dragon if he goes too fast. He's gotta be careful.
The pose here is really cool. It looks like they just landed, and the momentum, the inertia is just pushing the cape forward. It's that moment when the cape would go flying forward and before it kind of levels off. They picked a really cool pose for that.
So I'd say, to me, this was like, an 8 or 9 out of 10. It was very, very high. But the forearms are a bit strange. I'd love to see what you guys think when you see the model. They're a bit long, like they're almost as long as the legs, and I don't know what it is about it. But I can't wait to paint this up.
So let's talk pros and cons here. So we mentioned this, he's very fast. 14-inch flying move is one of the fastest units in the game, right? Like there's not many units that move.
The gold standard, yep.
Yeah,
gold standard of movement.
Yeah, 12 inches is what we call fast. 14 is like, yep, you're faster than fast. You're very fast. And he is also durable. 16 wounds on a 3-up save and -1 attack in melee all the time. And he's a hero, so he can heal with heroic recovery to get through light damage. He can find a Stour to deal with heavy assaults. He's durable. Like, there's no two ways about it. He's a tough boy. Not immortal, but he's tough.
He's close.
Yeah. He is lacking a ward, right? Which is unfortunate. But with Stormcast, you can get a 6-up Hammers the Sigmar ward. If you bring him in Hallowed Knights, you can put him near Gardas, and then he'll have a 5-up ward. And you can always just bring Praetors. If you really need to keep him alive, you can just give him a 3-up bodyguard. His shooting attack is surprisingly good, right? Like 9 max damage on 3s, Ren 2. Very easy to get that onto 2s and 2s if you use all-out attack and find a Stour. I don't know if that's the best use of those abilities to just, breathe on people.
Probably won't do that. Yeah. Maybe this is why we bring Vigilors out finally.
It very well could be. Yeah. Because every enemy that gets wounded by this breath, they either ignore the next source of healing, and that could be, either healing 1 wound or healing 6 wounds. Like if you're fighting a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon that heals 6 wounds in the combat phase after dealing 6 damage, it just heals 0, which, okay, that's awesome. And if it doesn't stop healing, every single hero phase, not just yours or your opponent's, every hero phase, you roll a dice, and if it's less than the current battle round, they take D3 mortal wounds for the rest of the game.
Is it less or less than equal to?
It's less than equal to.
Even better.
Okay.
Even better.
You can spike it turn 1.
It could, yeah. So it could, turn 1 happens in round 2. And this is every unit that you breathe on. So you could split these attacks up. So you could, put on turn 1, 3 attacks into 3 units. And if at least one of them goes through, there's a chance at D3 mortals for the rest of the game every single turn until they try to heal. And most units in the game can't heal. It's usually heroes with heroic recovery. Yeah. And if you're forcing people to use heroic recovery just to get rid of this, maybe they don't want to be using heroic recovery. Maybe they want command points. Maybe they want special heroic actions that they're trying to do. And there's no guarantee that heroic recovery will even work. So they could try it and fail. And you're just getting those little tiny advantages that are adding up.
Would you split this 3 times or just 2?
I don't know. So the shooting attack is weird. On one hand, you want to spread it around so that you can deny healing and get that soul burn mortal wound spreading going on. On the other hand, by the time you're actually at a point where the soul burn mortal wounds matter, the game's probably already over. Like, you won't get too much value out of it. So I don't think I'm going to be splitting it very much. You can. If there's multiple units you want to deny healing on, like if you're playing against OBR, maybe I'd do like a 5-4 split into, into a hero and into a unit that way. If they try to Bone Shaper both of them, they just can't, right? It just denies 3 healing potentially. But for the most part, I think I'm just going to be piling this on whatever my Long Strikes and Tempesters are shooting, or whatever I'm about to charge,
It's not the worst target for blessed weapons because it would also work for the shooting and profile as well.
Yeah, I could definitely envision turns where you bring another priest to buff him up with blessed weapons, you give him Finest Hour, you give him all-out attack, and you just send him in for an aggressive turn, right? I could definitely see that happening, because his melee is not bad either, right? His Relic Maul is 8 damage on 3s, Rend 1, and then his mount does a total of like 16 on some combination of Rend 2 and Rend 3. So he's not a bad fighter. He's not good by Stormcast standards, right? Like max 24 melee damage and a 9 damage shooting attack. That's pretty bad for Stormcast. Like we can do way better for 400 points, but it's not bad by other army standards. So like he is a threat. He's not something you can just ignore. He's not like he's not as pillow fisted as something like Bellicor seems to be.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at his keywords, he has Hero, so you can find a Stour. He can Heroic Willpower if you just want another Unbind in your army. Like, let's say you're running the typical thing right now, which is a Knight Incantor, a Hero with an Arcane Tome, and then a Priest. Well, the Priest can be using Heroic Willpower, and now you have 3 Unbinds, or 4 if you have Dracolines, and you really should have Dracolines. They're very good. But Hero is a great keyword to have. Draconith is a great keyword to have. It activates Holy Commands. You can score so many battle tactics with Draconith, especially Hero Draconith, especially like a fast Hero Draconith. Like, let's go over all the different battle tactics this guy can do. There's Draconith Destruction to kill 10 models in a unit. There's a Matter of Honor to kill an enemy monster. He can score Led into the Maelstrom as a fast hero and a durable hero. He can teleport units away with Translocation for Surround and Destroy and Intimidate the invaders. He can also, because his ability shuts off Inspiring Presence, you can finally do that terrible, terrible tactic that requires making Bravery 10 enemies run away in Battle Shock.
Lightning Shattering Morale, yep.
Yeah. This dude is just like a battle tactics machine. I love it. He's a monster, and we're always trying to get monsters into our lists. They often don't make the cut because we're looking at things like a Toralon, for example, might sometimes make the cut because it can give +1 hit, and then as a charging supporting monster, it can roar things, it can count as 5 models, it can smash terrain. And the Toralon, their support package is not very good. Whereas this is a really good support package. So you're willing to spend the extra 150 points on this guy over a Toralon. He can also gain Stormhost keywords. He's a named character that's not locked to a Stormhost. So you want to get the 5-up board in Hallowed Knights, you can do that. If you want to give him Exploding Hit 6 and Celestial Vindicators, you can do that. If you want to reroll charges in Tempest Lords, you can do that. It's great that we finally are getting characters that are not locked to Stormhosts. It was so annoying that every character was locked to Hammers of Sigmar.
Oh yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing. I think Games Workshop and the designers are starting to realize like there is it seems like we always have a lot more hoops to jump through than some other armies. So I think this is a great direction at the Warscroll, and I hope their 4.0 book or wherever they're cooking up is gonna also follow this lead.
Definitely. They've been nailing it lately with the Storm Coven and with the Quester Soulsworn. This is a very good design direction to take Stormcast into. He can also dispel an endless spell or an invocation in the enemy hero phase on a 2+, which means normally you'd be trying to roll, like a 5 to get rid of the Wrath Axe. Now you're rolling a 2 with him, which is way easier.
Corn's Eyes, yeah, it's all of that. It's like, it was really, really difficult to get rid of it, but now it's like, you can actually put a Corn player in check.
Yeah, and this ability is only in the enemy hero phase, so you can't resummon whatever you've dispelled or banished that same turn, which is good. It's a little limited in that you can't dispel endless spells in your turn. That would be nice, but, he's a priest. He can just dispel normally anyway.
Yeah.
And there is a little bit of weirdness with this rule. I'm not sure if this is correct, but I think he can try to do this before or after doing a normal dispel roll, because normally each priest can only make a dispel attempt once, but this ability is not a dispel attempt. It's just another ability that dispels something. It's not making a roll against the you know what I mean? Like, it's a different thing than attempting a dispel. So the way it's written, I'm pretty sure he can dispel an enemy spell, and then his ability here, the Archrelictor ability, can also dispel. So We'll see how that lands in an FAQ. I'm sure somebody will ask.
Yeah, they generally don't let like people double dip like that. Like given their FAQ to like the heroic action for rune lords and stuff.
Yeah, we'll see how it lands.
You know, yeah, it could end up anyway. Like,
the situations where it comes up are going to be like maybe one game in the next year. It'll happen. Like it's not. It's going to.
It might happen against Seraphon because they cast multiple of those things. So
that's true. Yeah, that's true. Enemies within 12 inches of Ionus cannot receive Rally or Inspiring Presence. Now, this is not a totally unique effect. We've seen this across the game in all kinds of different forms. I think the first version of this was in Daughters of Cain. They have an artifact that prevents Rally and Inspiring Presence within 6, and if you kill something, the range goes up, something like that. Slaves to Darkness has this as an artifact. The
Archaon has this, I think.
Archaon has this. The Charybdis from Cities of Sigmar has this, inexplicably somehow. Which makes me think that the Charybdis is a lot more important narratively than we realize, because it like I think Marathi like tried to seduce a Charybdis or something. There's some weirdness going on there, but that's neither here nor there. But this effect is really really strong, especially in high damage armies or high threat range armies like Stormcast. Being able to shut off Inspiring Presence is really good because it means you don't have to commit more resources to that same location. So if you just have a unit of long strikes or even 2 units of long strikes shooting into a big horde, normally that would be like they're going to survive it. They're going to Inspiring Presence, then they're going to rally every turn for the rest of the game. But if you just teleport Ionus up there within 12 inches, they can't inspire. And the long strikes are actually enough damage to just wipe out units, which is a huge game changer when your opponent can't just use Inspiring Presence to stop that. That means you don't have to commit your Tempestors that turn. You don't have to put any other units in range. You just have to get Ionus within 12, which is very easy to do with his 14-inch flying move.
Oh, yeah.
Now, stopping Rally, it would be nice if this stopped all revivals, like the OBR revival and things like that, but it's fine, right? Rally is still used in some armies. Daughters of Cain are using it. Caradron's still using it. There are still armies using Rally, so stopping Rally is fine. It's mostly the Inspiring Presence thing here that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think one of our biggest struggles sometimes can be hordes. So just not letting them just to do, like, I know, like, Gits players a lot. You'll see this. They'll take, like, double Indomitable, so you can't leadership them off the board. But, like, with him, like, now you can do stuff like that. So I think he might still be enough to shake up where, like, people might have to start thinking about how they run their lists. Because if you just don't get it, you just can't do Inspiring Presence anymore. Like, that's really backbreaking for some armies.
Yeah, I can think of like Iron Jaws, it's like when they like take a lot of Gorgon or something, you kill like they usually can do triple Inspiring Presence, but if you put this in range of all their brutes or pigs or whatever, and you kill like 3 models in each with Comet Fall, Annihilators, what have you, that's pretty devastating for them having to roll everything.
It also means we can dedicate less resources and still finish off units.
Spells. Yep.
And we don't have to rely on Horrorghast. Like Horrorghast, when it was cheap and people didn't have Primal Dice, I really liked Horrorghast. This is basically new Horrorghast. So what I was saying about the allocation of resources is, like, 4 Fulminators charging something are going to wipe something out. There's not much in the game that can survive a charge from that unit. But now, if you just had Ionus nearby and you charge 2 Fulminators, the 2 Fulminators will do enough damage, and then the lack of Inspiring Presence will probably finish the unit off. Right? So it's like, well, that's 240 points worth of hammers that you can put somewhere else or just preserve for future turns. And Ionus is tough enough that he can stand up there on the front line, contributing soul burns, contributing prayers, popping Finest Hour when necessary. And, he's still just a support piece. So if your opponents spend time killing him and your hammer units, the ones that are actually going to win you the game, if they're still alive, that's actually a fine trade because you don't need Ionus to survive the whole battle. He is a 2-chant Lord Priest. We got a confirmation today that he is a Lord. There was a bit of a snafu there. But he can also, so in addition to just chanting twice per turn, which is really, really strong, he can give up chanting one of his prayers, so he only chants 1 per turn, but then the other one just automatically succeeds. And not only that, it succeeds with a 6. So if you're using, for example, Smite, which does bonus mortal wounds on a 6, that's just gravy. Like the fact it could have just been auto-succeed, but they made it auto-succeed and it counts as a 6. Like, they made this ability as strong as they could. And the possibilities of automatically chanting Translocation the implications of that are tremendous for our army. we would take High Priest to make that role as reliable as possible. We would spend more points on a Lord Relictor instead of a Knight Relictor. And, it got to the point where we started squeezing things and we thought, we'll just bring a Knight Relictor. The grand strategies this season, you don't really want a High Priest general. You want a Wizard general so you can score the best of all the terrible grand strategies. And then here comes Ionus swooping in and being like, hey, you still want those reliable translocates? I got you. You can have the spellcasting Savant grand strategy and a guaranteed translocate. No dice roll required. Love it. I hate failing translocation more than anything else because it's the turn you need it for a battle tactic or to score a primary objective or just to get out of combat with something. That's the turn it's going to fail. No matter how reliable that dice roll is, it's going to fail that turn, right?
You're going to roll that one out 36. It's going to happen.
Yes, that's the turn it rolls, right? Not anymore. Not anymore. When it matters, when it's about to score you a battle tactic, you just auto 6 and you got it. Fantastic. I love it. And his prayer is good. I kind of wish he kept the healing aspect of it. It's a little weird that he just does damage now, but hey, whatever. Can't have it all.
It's fine. Like honestly, like I don't recall that many times ever using the healing, unless I'm running like Karazai or something, like a big guy.
Yeah, it was nice.
And there's already like so many tools for healing, heroic recovery and all that. But it's whatever. Plus, it actually works like chain lightning now. Like I've been reading some Stormcast lore, some audiobooks while I've been driving around, and it's like, yeah, a lot of the times what the Lord Relictors and Knight Relictors like to do is just channel the lightning and strike just a bunch of units like that are around each other. And so like, yeah, this is very thematic actually for him to do because it never felt like you were summoning a lightning storm from the Lord Relictor. It was like you just just called in a lightning bolt. But the term is lightning storm, so it didn't feel like a storm, but now it does.
Yeah, it was arcane bolt without a casting roll.
Yes.
Without the unbinding roll, let's say, to be more specific.
Yeah.
This definitely does feel more unique. It makes me wish Chain Lightning, the spell that Stormcast can cast, wasn't so pathetic. you know? Like, this is just better than Chain Lightning. But, okay,
I think
sure.
Cities of Sigmar technically has a better Chain Lightning
They
than
do,
us because,
yes.
Yeah.
It's really sad. But even just the idea of an offensive priest is a very cool thing. Right? Like, Corrin has it kind of with the Blood Boil and the Slaughter Priest, but he's a little foot hero. He doesn't want to get in combat. Ionus can be on the front line. Not saying he should be, but he can be. He's not a foot hero. That's a very important distinction. It's like, we haven't seen that. It's the closest parallel, I think, is the Firebrand Bloodthirsters in Khorne, right? Where you have this frontline priest going up there using these offensive prayers. And it's a cool niche for Stormcast to pick up on.
I was also a bit disappointed about no 4+ magic ignore. I guess that's just something that only the baby drakes get, right?
Yeah.
Is that just the rule now?
Well, that's weird because in the story, the reason the baby drakes get it and the older drakes don't is because the little drakes have spent their entire lifetimes being raised in a magical Seraphon subdimension.
That's right, yeah.
And so they're just infused with magic so much that they ignore enemy spells. And this guy, I forget the mount's name, but this unique dragon here, he's part of that generation. Yeah. He's not part of the Karazai generation. So he should have that same spell ignore. So it's a little weird he doesn't have it. Maybe they thought spell ignores in Stormcast are too strong. I don't know.
Yeah, or they don't want to give it to a leader. But they also didn't give him a ward. All the other big heroes that have come out in the last 4 months all have wards except for this guy.
I'm secretly hoping Stormcast don't have wards in the next edition, and what we have instead is just more wounds. If Liberators had 3 wounds instead of having any access to a ward, that would just be better. That would straight up just be better. But he's not perfect. There's some downsides. First off, he's unique, so he can't take universal prayers or mount traits. So you can't learn curse or guidance or heal, which is unfortunate because automatic curse, that would have been sweet. That would have been so sweet to just guarantee a curse every turn. Mount traits, Stormcast have really good mount traits. Most of our enhancements are not good. It's prayers and mount traits that are the good things in our book. And the fact that he can't pick the mount traits is kind of a bummer because there are more than a few that I would love to take with him.
Normally, the Storm Drakes have 4 mount attacks, and they're called ancient, or they're called Claws and Fang attack, or something like that. And you get 4 of them, right? This guy starts with 5 claw attacks, and then it goes down from there, and then he has a separate Fang attack. However, the claw attack is only 2 inches, whereas on the regular Storm Drake, the claws and fangs are both 3 inches. And I can't tell you how important that is for playing a dragon army to have that 3 inch reach on the claws and fangs. So it's a bit strange. Like you could not hit over top of drakes with that 2 inch. Like if you had drakes with you that were protecting you, and that's kind of disappointing.
That's fair, but given that this guy's more of like a support piece rather than a hammer or an anvil, the range is a lot less relevant because it's really relevant with Storm Drakes because the way that unit moves and its cohesion and what it's trying to do and how much space it's trying to cover. I think it's a lot less relevant with this guy, especially, and this is a weird thing to mention, but because he has a round base, the range is a lot less relevant. Like when you have an oval base, the way you turn it plus the range makes a big difference. But with a round base, it's not that big of a difference.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, but it was just the first thing that stood out to me because I'm so used to positioning my drakes behind a screen or like reposting and being able to utilize that 3 inch that I was kind of just like a bit, surprised. That's all.
Being a 2-chant priest, if he's not in range to chant his Lightning Tempest, which on the first turn you often won't be, you want another prayer to chant, right? And usually that's going to be Bless Weapons or Divine Light if you're in range of an enemy. But that you don't want to give up Translocation. It's just too good. So you really want to take a prayer enhancement, which means you want to go towards a Warlord build, which means you want more drops in your list. So it's a bit of a list building challenge to make this guy fit perfectly. Now, I think it's just fine if you want to only translocate and Lightning Tempest, and that's all this guy wants to do. That's just fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to take a prayer enhancement. It just feels like you're being incentivized to do it, take the maximum potential of this model.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that ties into his point cost because we are paying 400 for him. So you're like, I want him to do as much as I can because I'm essentially playing 1,600 points plus him.
Yeah, and that 1,600 goes quick in Stormcast.
Yeah.
So his damage for 400 points is not great. I think I mentioned that Stormcasts have better options if you need damage. How I view him is that he's replacing the priest in your list, or the main priest, let's say, and then he's also replacing a hammer unit. So you would swap out, for example, a unit of 6 questers and the Lord Relictor, and that's about 360 points, and he's 400. So it's pretty close, right? Like he's almost there. And I think he does enough for his point cost. I think he's going to make it into quite a few builds, but I don't think he's going to make it into all of them. He's got synergy with different styles of play that Stormcast like to do. Like we have this Comet Fall style that's getting more popular now where we're just trying to kill enemies with mortal wounds. And it would seem that Lightning Tempest would fit very well into that. But the problem is that you're not chanting Lightning Tempest on the first turn unless you translocate in range. And if you want to chant 2 prayers, that means you're doing a 3+ into a 3+ into a series of D3s followed by 3+ and then more D3s. The whole thing is so random, I don't think he makes the cut into that style. You could consider putting him into like our 7-inch Scions drop playstyle, replacing the cheap priest that would translocate stuff around. And I've tried making lists like that, but it feels like he ends up just being too expensive, and cutting a hammer out of that list, you really don't want to do that, because that list wins Pyrrhic victories. Like it wins through dying and trading properly and keeping up on objectives. And when you're dumping 400 points and not trading it properly because he could be doing more damage and he could be more disposable, I don't know how he'd fit into that style exactly. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I can't envision currently how he does. Where I think he fits best is with lots of shooting, like a defensive list that wants to take advantage of the fact that you don't have to roll for translocation, so that you can just put one unit where you need it every single turn. And usually that means shooting, right? Tempesters, Long Strikes, Judicators, Dracoline's usually playing aside. I think that's where he wants to be. So I don't think we can call him S tier, although his Warscroll is really, really cool. He's got a ton of abilities going on. Some of it is a little situational, right? Like stopping Rally and Inspiring Presence is good when it matters, but if people aren't using Rally or Inspiring Presence, then that's a completely worthless ability. If they're not healing, then Soul Burn could just do 0 mortal wounds throughout the whole game, and that's not very useful. He's got like a lot of situational stuff going on. And in most matchups, it'll come in handy. But there will be some matchups where it doesn't. And you'll feel like, why did I spend 400 points on this guy when he could just be a Lord Relictor with High Priest? for 130. And it's almost as reliable, right? Like that, the 270 points you save is probably going to do more for you than the 1 in 36 chance that you fail High Priest Translocate. So I don't think I can call him S tier. I think he is an A tier at his current point cost. If he was 40 points cheaper, like if he was 360, I think he could be S tier. What do you guys think?
I agree. I think he needs to be S would be 340, 360 for him. I think A fits him perfectly.
Yeah, I think he's worth 400. Like, I'll pay 400 points and put him in lists and feel good about it. There's nothing wrong with his current point cost. For him to be like, because I think we were talking about this before we started recording. For him to be an auto include, I think like 320 points, and he's in every single list. You never skip him at that point.
But at that point, that's not interesting, because then that means your Stormcast list has to start with a 320 point text, sort of like how we felt about the Lord Relictor a while back.
Yeah, so I don't want him to be at that point. So 400 is a price I'm willing to pay.
Yeah,
400 is, I'm willing to pay. I think time will tell how efficient that is, because unfortunately, like, we're a faction that very, very much wants to juice out every point we can because we don't have a lot of plan Bs in our army. Like I could see him dropping down to 360 and be okay. Like I don't think it would change anything, but 400 is like perfectly fine. He's chock full of like what I would call, he's a true 3rd edition Warscroll, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yes. On the subject of backup plans, one of the things that often can lose a game for Stormcast is like a crazy low roll. Like, let's say you've dedicated enough resources, like this should be enough to wipe this unit out, but oh no, they spike saves, or you really roll low on your like attacks or something, and then they inspiring presence, and then they start rallying back. You know what I mean? Like that kind of scenario is far less likely when you have something like Ionus available. So even though he is taking away from your damage, he's like supplementing the reliability of that damage in a way, right? He just makes the whole army play smoother and more reliably with the auto prayers and the stopping certain commands.
Yeah, I think you're going to see it most come out like once if you have him and you're playing against a lot of like a death meta, like Soulblind stuff, like he's gonna be your MVP. Like the fact that you don't have to shoot through all 100 plus zombies, you really just have to make sure you get to that number. If it's a 40 block, that number is like 25. So I'd really only do, so like in your head you'd be like, okay, I really wanted to do 25 damage to this unit because the rest of the unit's gonna run, and there's nothing my opponent could do to change that. So I think that's when he's gonna shine. I think they're trying to help. I think GW is trying to help us in that more horde matchup where we usually struggle having to chew.
Yeah, he's definitely going to come in handy there. A horror gas that can't be stopped is a very useful thing. Very, very useful. All right, let's take a look at some sample lists we came up with over the past few days, just talking about this guy, being very excited about him. First up is a Hammers of Sigmar Battle Regiment 1-drop list. This one is, it's pretty straightforward. Ionus is here to auto-cast Translocate after you buff up 6 Tempesters with the Lord Castellan to give him +1 save with his Warding Lantern. Hopefully you cast Mystic Shield and Celestial Blades on them, and then you auto-translocate them up the board. And then you drop 5 Liberators in front of them to stop melee attackers, and you run Ionus up to support them while the rest of your army plays the rest of the table. This is a very straightforward army. About as simple as Stormcast can get, and about as reliable too. Like there's very little dice rolling involved here because you can cast all these spells out of unbinding range and then just translocate into range. Yeah, it's gonna work. I think this list is gonna be a lot better than it seems. It looks very simple, but I think it's gonna work. It's got Knight and Cantor with Shaman of the Chilled Lands. We love that combo lately. Even though you can't teleport into a blizzard anymore, just having a blizzard is a huge deal. People can't just charge into you recklessly. They have to think about how they're charging distances to your general and all that. Being able to just issue Thunderbolt Volley to clear out screens before you translocate up, that's a very useful thing. Dracoline's all-star unit. We've talked to death about how good Dracolines are. If you're not using them, you really should be.
How do you screen 6 Tempesters? Like, how do you feel about that? Because like the 5, I've had a bit of trouble making the screen work on 6.
Usually I just treat them like 4 up front and then 2 in the back. Because if you go 6 wide, then people tend to avoid Unleash Hell by hitting you on a flank. Whereas if you go 4 by 2, 4 in front, 2 in the back, then you get most of them in for Unleash Hell. So I found that to be the best way to do it.
I think that's a really good point that people should take note of, and I'm taking note of right now because I've often been like, well, how do I position these six to work properly?
Yeah, solid list. I think this is a very obvious one for people to come up with.
Yeah, I love the 6 block. God, I love the 6 block.
6 block is really, really good.
Live and die by it. If you don't position correctly or you get doubled or something, it can go away quick. Just watch out in case that Mystic Shield fails. All right, list number 2. David, this one's yours, right? With the Hallowed Knights and Gardas?
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually, because I know people have been asking, like, how can he fit in kind of dragon? So this is also before we've seen the rules for Army of Renown. So I was trying to figure out exactly, I'm like, how can I get dragons involved with Ionus, because dragons are still crazy overcosted at 340. Maybe that changes in Dawnbringers. Maybe we'll get our report decreases. We will see. So the core, this list is heavily based upon. I know some people have seen it like a 2x4 kind of Drake style list with Gardas, Castellan. Just really beefing up your dragons in the defense department. But the nice thing with the Ionus now is you can still get that defense with Gardas putting out that ward. But you also get offensive power, and that's a thing that dragons really, really, really need, especially now with all these other armies. So you can cast blessed weapons if you have swords, especially if you have swords or just even lances. Spiking on some 6s with the lance could really swing at negative 2/2 damage. You have Celestial Blades with the Incantor. Grand strategy is Spellcasting Savant, and then the Mirror Shield really helps out there. You can't just get Deep Striked on or teleported on, and somebody just pick up your Incantor anymore. That's really nice. So, and Ionus is just fast. He keeps up with the dragons. I think that's really important. One thing I always had a problem with when I was running dragon lists with Gardas, Castellan, or Cantor was you still had to keep the dragons kind of on a leash, because it's very, very easy to get outside that 12-inch bubble. And then now you just have dragons on the table with just a 3+ save and no ward.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you, because you could have gone Battle Regiment here. So basically, you're trading Battle Regiment to get blessed weapons on Ionus. And do you think that's worthwhile?
I was actually thinking about that. So I think it's really more or less how you want to play. So if you're a type of player that you fish for doubles, and I won't lie, I used to always be a Battle Regiment. I've always liked Battle Regiment just because I wanted those doubles with the dragons. Because double turning with dragons, especially with the breath and everything, is really, really good. But with Ionus, I almost want the second prayer just because I feel like I want, if there's a chance to get more damage with my dragons in this list specifically, I want the extra damage. Less weapons on dragons with swords or lances is really good. I think that's where I'm at with the warlord. When you're spending so many points on dragons, you need every other unit that you have in your list to be as efficient.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why I want the extra prayer, because it makes Ionus more efficient. I think if I could squeeze, let's say dragons went down 20-40 points, I could squeeze an extra support hero for another damage buff spell or prayer, then I would probably be more inclined to go lower drops, like a Battle Regiment +1, so a 2-drop essentially. But I feel like just the way that dragons are pointed, I almost want the Warlord, because in case I need that damage spike, I'm going to regret not having the Warlord.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough. And the extra command points come in handy too.
Oh yeah, you go through command points fast.
Sweet, good list, man. I've got an Astral Templars list here, and the idea is that combined with the guaranteed teleport from Ionus and from Vanguard Hunters, this is just all over the table any turn it wants to be. I'm a big sucker for just using certain units this season. I think Tempesters, Evocators from Dracolines, Long Strikes, all this stuff is so core to what I'm trying to do. I couldn't think of anything better to put in here. So similar units to the previous list that I had, but just the fact that this goes Astral Templars to avoid Roar, it makes Ionus tankier, it makes all the Evocators tankier, And it's got this 5 block of Judicators with Boltstorm crossbows because I just didn't want to fit another hero, and I didn't want more Vanguard Hunters. I just wanted some more damage. Ionus is not particularly high damage, and I felt like if I just had, another support hero in here instead of the Adjudicators, I would just be lacking total damage, and I wouldn't be able to deal with things like Soul Blight or Gargants. I think Gargants is what I'm more worried about now, because at least with Inspiring Presence being canceled, you can cut through zombies now. Yeah. If you want to play Ionus and just teleport all over the board and have a fairly competitive list, I think this is the way to go. I did go for as many drops as possible because that's something I'm in favor of right now. I think there's a reason to take lower drops, but there's also a reason to go as many drops as possible so that you can always counter deploy. You always get the perfect turn 1 when you're forced to go first. You always get the right deployment, and that leads into surviving a double turn anytime, and it feels really good. I'd rather have more information these days than less drops. And the Gravetide. I had 30 points, so I chucked a Gravetide in here. Why not? And the last list, I think this is pretty much where we're landing on a competitive draft of the Ionus list. Rather than the 6 Tempester block, this drops down to 4. Rather than the Warlord, it takes the prayer enhancements that you can get 2 priests with 2 prayers each. So you have the option to translocate Ionus up with the Relictor, then Ionus can chant Divine Light and his Lightning Storm. It's got Incanter with all the usual goodies, Shaman, Mirror Shield, Blades. It's got 2 units of Longstrike crossbows, and this is something we're torn on right now, David, I think. Whether we want more shooting or we just want Quester Soulsworn, because they're the exact same points, so they fit. They're just, you swap them out 1-to-1. And I've tried the Questers so far, and I found them lacking. Without Wild Form, rest in peace, Wild Form, from a Battle Mage, we just don't have the delivery mechanism for them, so they have to be like a proactive threat that you toss out on the table and hope your opponent engages them. And I would rather just have long strikes doing that every turn from 30 inches away. Yeah, I think the long strikes fit better, but it's something I'll keep testing.
Yeah, this is like the version, guys, I'm going to be testing. The only other version I was thinking about, again, it's very meta dependent, but I have been thinking about going High Priest and Overshadow now, because I feel we have a better way to deal with battle against heavier battle line like Soul Blight, Feck, even OBR, sometimes Gits, but I've seen a lot of Gits player moving towards Trolls now instead of Jaws. So with Overshadow, you can make the Knight Relictor High Priest, so you can pretty much have a 3+ rollable, translocate up Ionus, and then Ionus could do Divine Light and then his Warscroll Prayer for like a big turn 1 like Alpha. Which is a good option. I'm also kind of agreeing with you, Paul. I think I like the long strikes just because of Ionus's bubble too. Like we were saying earlier, like against some destruction armies, even some order armies. Like there's a lot of like lower leadership in a lot of armies that like you don't necessarily have to wipe the unit with the long strikes. If you kill just enough to start making them take checks, like that's huge. That's free. That's just free points you're taking away from your opponent's army.
Yeah, and in those situations, you might even translocate Ionus up so that he's in range of his aura right away, or you might run him up because he's 14-inch fly move, so it's totally fine to just walk up. And I've actually been thinking maybe another way to go is only take Divine Light on Ionus, bring a Knight Relictor with High Priest to translocate, and then that way you take Call for Aid and Thunderbolt Volley in the same list. It's a lot of like minor variations on this, but this is pretty much where we're at. This is what we're going to be playtesting. I'm strongly considering bringing something like this to a GT in December, so there's going to be some good playtesting happening over the next few weeks.
Yeah,
we made it back to Shootcast Castles. We went all the way around, and we ended up where we started. Now with more dragons. All right, so that concludes this video. This is a very exciting model, and we are very, very happy that we got something this good. Like the design for Stormcast has been really good lately. We've been getting like a trickle with the Questers, the Storm Coven, this guy, Neve coming up soon. Hopefully, she has a great Warscroll that does a lot of cool stuff. I'm very excited about the direction they're taking Stormcast with all these Warscrolls. The point cost could be a little bit, they're not quite perfect, but hey, nothing ever is. And they're good enough that I'm willing to play these models. So I'm not too upset about that. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Hopefully our review has been insightful. Thank you especially to our Patreon subscribers and YouTube members. If you think we missed something, then let us know down below in the comment section. If you want to talk about AOS, then join the Stormkeep Discord server. We're on there all day, every day, talking about Age of Sigmar. We've got a battle reports forum where we talk about our various matches. We go into like a deep analytical thought process of this is why we're doing this thing. You can see all these measurements that we're checking out. Really good way to try to advance your gameplay by reading what more competitive players are doing. You can post your models. We have a lot of fantastic painters and hobbyists doing really cool stuff all the time. We have a community contest going on. By the time this video comes out, our current one, Painting Warbands, might be over, and the next one will be starting, so you can jump on in right when we start it. And we do list building for all armies, not just for Stormcast, not just for Ionus, but for every Grand Alliance. We've got dedicated, passionate players that are just looking forward to talking about the armies that they play. You can consider supporting the gang by becoming a member on YouTube or joining us on patreon.com/thestormkeep. For $5 a month, you get access to all the slides we use in these videos and early access to all our videos before they go public. Coming up next on the podcast, we have our Stormcast Allies video, which has been, we're almost finished, but it got bumped because of all these awesome Warscrolls coming out. But because it got bumped, we've managed to include a few of those on there. Like we'll be talking about Belthanos, the new Sylvaneth hero, on that video, so look forward to that. We're going to be taking another crack at our faction identities, which is kind of like a breakdown of how a faction plays, what it's trying to do, strengths and weaknesses. We did a live stream about that last year, and we're going to be taking another stab at it. And then, David, you and I are working on how to play Karazai. You are attending a GT with another Karazai list, and hopefully we can use all that experience to inform our slides for that video.
Yep. Gotta give Big Boy one more shot before I go to Ionus. He deserves it.
From everybody here at the Stormkeep, thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you very soon with another video.
Take care, y'all.